Hey everyone, it's Tyler Stroik from Universal Rackets, and today we are going to be going over the take back for the forehand and the backhand. We're going to be going over the different tips and different tricks for you to ensure that you're in the proper position every single time. Regardless if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced player, this video is for you. So, the take back with the forehand. You want to make sure that the racket is back behind you. Once again, the take back for the forehand. When I take this racket back, I want the racket back behind me, and here's the key, guys, where too many players go wrong. I want it on the front side of my body. Once again, take the racket back behind me and on the front side of my body. Where players go wrong is either A, they don't take the racket back, the racket's right here, they have no momentum, or B, they take the racket all the way behind them. You could see the racket on the opposite side of me. You want to take the racket straight back. Same thing for the backhand, right? So when I take this racket back, boom, here we are. When I take the racket back, it's in front of me also. Again, not here, not all the way back here, right here. Now, when you're taking the racket back, how do you ensure that you're in the proper position? Here's a great cue. When I take this racket back for the backhand, I want you to see where my strings and the tip of my racket are facing. Notice, my strings are facing to the side. The tip of the racket is pointing backwards. Once again, strings are to the side, tip of the racket's pointing backwards. When I take this forehand back, here we are, boom, I turn, strings are to the side, tip of the racket is pointing backwards. Now, it's not pointing straight backwards, right? It is pointing up and backwards. Now, for the backhand, you need to be more precise, especially for the two-handed backhand. For the one-handed backhand, you need to be here as well. You need to be strings to the side, tip of the racket pointing up and backwards. For the forehand, you will see different takebacks, right? You'll see Tiafo, he'll go like this, or Kyrgios, right? You'll see here, here, here. But wherever they take the racket back, again, it's always on the front side of their body. If you're a beginner or intermediate club level player, I would recommend just taking the racket back here. But again, for the backhand, though, you don't see all these different takebacks for the backhand. You just see it right back here. So how do we ensure that we get in the proper position for the forehand takeback? Well, instead of taking your racket back with your dominant hand, you're going to push the racket back with your non-dominant hand. Once again, instead of taking the racket back with this hand, where too many players go wrong, they take the racket back here. Notice when I take my racket back, I also need to turn my body. Too many players, when they hit, they take the racket back, right, and they don't turn their body and they have no momentum. I want to make sure that my racket is back and that my body is turned. So again, instead of taking the racket back with my dominant hand, all I'm going to do is I'm going to push the racket back with my non-dominant hand. So a great exercise that every single one of you guys can do is instead of just taking the racket back with your dominant hand, you're going to grip the racket on the throat of your racket with your non-dominant hand like this. You're going to position your hand just like you'd be hitting, and you're just taking the racket back. Notice I'm taking my dominant hand off the racket, right? If you're left-handed, it's going to look like this. I am taking the dominant hand off my racket. All I'm doing is I'm pushing it back with this top hand. This hand down here, it is just along for the ride. I am pushing this hand back. Notice, when I take the racket back with this hand, look, now my body is turned. Now I'm in the proper position for the take back. Another big thing with this, by taking the racket back with your non-dominant hand, look, I'm never going to go too short. I'm never going to go super far back. I'm always going to be in the proper position, okay? Now for the backhand, you can't take the racket back with your non-dominant hand for a two-handed backhand, but one thing that you can do is when you take the racket back, you're going to think two cues. When I take the racket back for the two-handed backhand, I'm thinking two cues. This is also for the one-handed backhand as well. Notice, when I take this racket back, my strings are to the side, the tip of the racket is pointing backwards. Strings are to the side, tip of the racket is pointing backwards. Notice, my racket is up, it's not pointing straight back, it's up, okay? Another thing, notice, to ensure that I'm turned, my hips are facing to the side. So when I'm in my ready position, right, where are my hips facing? My hips are facing forward, right? But when I turn and I take the racket back, now my hips are facing to the side, and then I can go to the ball, and then I can hit. So if you can think that you're turning your hips, that's going to take your racket back or help take your racket back in the proper position. Now, for the one-handed backhand, what you can do is you can pretend that just like the forehand, you're pulling it back with your non-dominant hand, you're pushing it back with your non-dominant hand. Now, for your one-handed backhand, you are pulling the racket back with your non-dominant hand. Again, I'm here, ready position, waiting, split. I am pulling the racket back with my non-dominant hand. I'm feeling coil in my body so I can load and unload when I hit. So that is a tip for the take back. Now we are going to be talking about the elbows. The elbows are an essential part for a proper take back, a proper unit turn, a proper first starting position, okay? When I take the racket back from my forehand, notice when I turn, boom, look at my racket. Look at my elbow, sorry. When I turn, take the racket back. Here we are, boom. When I turn, take the racket back, this is what we call an ATP style forehand. Now, there's two different forehands, okay? Typically for the WTA, it's not even really a WTA forehand, but there's forehands, more old school forehands, that are like this, their elbows inside. Boom, here, your elbows inside, right? They go to hit it like this, or like this, and then they go and hit, right? Now, if you want to get a little bit more advanced, or the way that I play and the way that I teach, when I take this racket back, boom, here we are, look at the elbow. I am elbowing the person behind me. I'm pretending I'm Conor McGregor, right? Conor McGregor, elbow, right? I'm throwing the elbow back and elbowing that person. By elbowing that person behind me, that's going to make sure my racket is in the proper position, okay? Same thing for the two-handed backhand. When I turn, I take the racket back, look, my elbow is up. My elbow's not down, my elbow's up. So I'm elbowing the person behind me, okay? This is going to allow me in my take back, why I want my racket is up, is because when I proceed with my swing, I'm going to drop, make contact, hit through the ball, extend, and follow through. Now for the one-handed backhand, same exact concept, right? I am elbowing the person behind me. Again, I'm ready, split, I am elbowing the person behind me, so then I can proceed with my swing. So if you can think about your elbow, it is going to make a big difference as well. Now another way that you can think about your take back, okay, is your chest. What did I say before? A take back is what? A racket back and our body is turned. Now, for the forehand, I want you to pretend that you have a Nike or Under Armour shirt. You have a logo right here on your shirt, your non-dominant side chest. So if I'm a right-hand player, I have a logo on my left side of my chest. If I'm a left-hand player, logo on the right side chest, right? When I turn, watch this, right? I turn, I'm hiding. I'm hiding. You can't see. Pretend there's a logo. Look, you can't see my logo when I turn and I take the racket back. Again, when I go to hit, right, I turn, boom, you can't see the logo of my chest. Now I can proceed through my swing and then I can go. So by hiding your logo, that's going to ensure that you're properly turned and you have the racket back as well. Same thing for the backhand. For the backhand, now I have a logo on the right side of my body. So watch, when I turn, boom, one hand, two hand, one hand, two hand. Look, I'm hiding the logo as well, so then I can proceed throughout my swing. Now, you can also think for the backhand, and a great way to really take that racket back and coil your body is watch, you're going to show the front of your back shoulder. I absolutely love this tip. When I turn, I take this racket back, boom, look, I'm showing the front of my back shoulder. I'm showing this part, my scapula, I think is what you call it, right? When you turn, boom, you show your scapula, and then you go and you hit the ball, okay? So we went over what is the proper take back. We went over the elbow for the proper take back. We went over our hips. We went over hiding our logo on our shirt. Now what we're going to go in, when we take this racket back, I want you to think about movement, okay? Now, what do you do after you take the racket back? So, we just taught you guys all the different tips and tricks to ensure that you're taking the racket back. I also forgot to mention the non-dominant hand, pushing it back or pulling it back for that one-handed backhand. But now it's time to put this into practice. So, we have our slinger bag over here, and we are going to get into different types of shots so you guys can see this live in person. Let's get started. forehand now. So I take the racket back, and then I hit. Once again, I take this racket back, then I hit. Try again, racket back, then I hit. 2 more, racket back, then I hit. Racket back, then I hit. Once again, racket back, then I hit. Same thing for the 2-hand, racket back. I like showing my back shoulder personally. Racket back, shoulder, then hit. Racket back, back shoulder, then hit. Racket back, back shoulder. I got to use my left hand. 1 more, got to close my strings. Been a while, first ball is good. 1 hand, pull it back with that non-dominant hand. Again, I'm going to pull it back with the non-dominant hand. I'm going to pull it back with the non-dominant hand. I'm going to pull it back with the non-dominant hand, then hit, pull it back, and hit. Now, a big thing, once you learn the take back, is you have to make sure that you approach the take back in the proper way. Where players go wrong is that they take the racket back, but they hit the ball late because they don't take it back at the proper time. Notice, if I ever have a ball over here, and we're going to demonstrate this, watch. This is where players go wrong. This is why you guys can't hit balls, right? You hit them too late, is because ball's over here, you're going to the ball, and then you take the racket back and you're late. Watch, I am taking the racket back first. The first thing I do is, boom, here we are. First thing I do is take my racket back, then I move to the ball, and then I proceed with my shot. Same thing for the backhand, right? Where players go wrong is that they go to the ball and then take their racket back. They're late. I want to, we'll do the 1 hand as well, go to the ball, racket back, I'm late. I want to, first thing that I do is, again, what, guys? I take the racket back, then I move to the ball, and then I hit. Once again, I take the racket back, then I move to the ball, and then I hit. So we are going to demonstrate now going out to the balls, okay? Going out and moving to the ball. So we're going to start out with our forehand, and I want to show you what's not right to do and what's right. The reason why you probably hit the ball late is because of this. Here we are. So ball's out wide, right? This is where players go wrong. They go to the ball and then they take it back too late. I need to take the racket back, then I move to the ball, and then I hit. Once again, I take the racket back, then I move to the ball. Once again, racket back, then move to the ball. 1 hand, they wait, and then, take the racket back. No, racket back, then I move to the ball. Racket back, then I move to the ball. 2 hand, racket back, then I move. You guys see how I'm taking my racket back first, then I'm moving. Racket back, then I'm moving. Racket back, then I'm moving. 1 more. Racket back, then I'm moving. Even if the ball comes and I don't hit it, watch where my racket is. Do you guys see where my racket is? My racket is already back. So if you're rallying with someone right now, if you're in a rally, right, you hit, recover, hit, recover, someone nets the ball, you already want to take the racket back. You should be able to take the racket back before your opponent's ball even crosses the net. So again, the first thing that you do as soon as your brain recognizes that's a forehand or a backhand, you must ensure that you take the racket back properly and then move to the ball to hit. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Tennis with Tyler. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube. And make sure to check out my Instantly Improve My Forehand and Serve ebooks. Links in the description. Have a good one, guys. Happy hitting, and I'll see you guys on court.